The Seraphim and the Nephilim, two sides of the same coin, the light and the dark in a perpetual struggle which culminates in harmony between the opposing sides. Once, they had been mortal siblings, born early in the Fourth Era. They had been Bretons, citizens of High Rock. Their parents had not been wealthy. In fact, they could barely afford 2 hungry mouths to feed. Such was the intensely hierarchical nature of Bretonny society, which saw the 1% free to spend exorbitant sums advancing their political interests, while the unrepresented masses toiled fruitlessly beneath them. Both children had a natural athleticism, and this led them to embark on careers of bounty hunting. From the youthful gaze of the pair, it had the appearance of an exotic vocation, hunting down dangerous enemies, bringing the canker of society to justice, for the right price, of course. It was not what they had imagined at first, as contractors were far more willing to hire established bounty hunters, but through extensive training in their weapons of choice and risk-taking, they began to gain a foothold in the market. However, in correlation with their success, was a rift which began to form between the brother and sister, and this all came to a head at the end of a very successful bounty mission. Everything had proceeded according to plan. They had tracked the group of miscreants for 2 days, launching their attack under the cover of darkness. The sister had used her bow to silently eliminate the sentry of the camp, the reverberations of the bowstring, the only sound which penetrated the inky blackness. At the same time, her brother rushed in, ensuring to exaggerate the noise of the attack, making it seem like they were being ambushed by a much larger force. Soon it was all over. The 6 bandits lay dead from a mixture of sword and arrow wounds, and their leader kneeled in front of them, helpless. This was where the root of darkness began to take hold in the brother. He argued that instead of taking the leader back to the contractor alive, they should kill him there and then, since they did not have enough food for 3 people. The sister knew, however, that it was his wounded pride hiding behind a misguided pragmatism, since he bore a gash on his arm, placed there by their defeated adversary. Without preamble, he strode over and dispatched a bandit leader on the spot with a flick of his wrist, oblivious to his protestations and the fear which clouded his eyes. Even though this was but one of many contracts they undertook in the period of a few years, this memory remained prominent in the mind of the sister, who was beginning to notice a cruel streak in he for whom she cared for most whenever he entered battle. They would have continued their successful career as bounty hunters were it not one fateful evening, after a successful mission in Rivenspire. The pair were sitting on a felled tree by a campfire, on the return to their current paymasters with news that the latest menace had been defeated. The prospect of pay was always a heady one for bounty hunters, and so they had been pushing themselves hard for the last week, stopping for rest and food only when they had to, and for no longer than was necessary. Breaching all professional protocol, both were lulled into a lethargy-fueled sleep, but were awoken by a clamour in their camp, the sound of water being poured onto the fire and belongings being upended. Both were grabbed by their assailants, and despite being outnumbered 10 to 1, lashed out in the darkness. The brother felt the crunch of a nose and heard one fall back with a startled cry. These were not experienced warriors. However, both were incapacitated, with a knock to the head, and when they came to, they found themselves in a temple of sorts, marked out as sanctified ground by the grey sloping arches, elegant despite their age, and the likeness of Arcade, looking down upon them severely.
The Seraphim is a character who, in her own mind, works to achieve order and greater good in the world around her. However, such pursuits can often be viewed as less than virtuous due to her cold and calculating nature and singular thinking. She is steadfast and rigid in her views and has no problems eliminating any threat perceived, real or imaginary. As such, it's not uncommon for otherwise innocent people to end up on the receiving end of a well-placed arrow for not conceding to her agenda, for she will not bend her conviction to any man or mer. Not all confrontation ends in bloodshed, however, as her time as a mercenary taught her not only how to kill, but diplomacy as well, and often she is capable of swaying a situation with words alone. While the primary quest line of defeating Alduin will of course be very important to the character, perhaps even more important to the Seraphim will be the rise of Miraak, as she will see him as an insult not only to her own pride as Dragonborn, but also the personification of the evils of humanity, one that must be snuffed out at all costs lest the world fall to total corruption. In regards to faction choice, the Dawnguard is a given, as the undead plague is a blight upon her ideals of a utopian Tamriel. The College of Winterhold and the Companions are also fair options, though she will never be truly devoted to either, and in the case of the Companions, she will turn on them the very instant she learns of their lycanthropy. How this will play out in the long run will be up to you. And finally, in regards to the Civil War, the Seraphim will side with the Empire. While she does vilify the Thalmor, she views the Empire as Tamriel's best chance for true order to blossom. The Thalmor are an evil that she will have to deal with at a later time. In combat, the Seraphim is a versatile fighter with many options, but your preferred method of engagement will be from range, nailing opponents with sneak attacks as often as possible. Should melee combat become unavoidable, you will have a dagger to fall back on, as well as offensive spells such as Blue Giant and Corona. Become Ethereal and Bend will give you means by which to put distance between yourself and your foes should things become too heated. Being Breton, the Seraphim will begin the game with +10 to Conjuration and +5 to Alchemy, Alteration, Illusion, Restoration, and Speech, as well as a 35% resistance to magic and the racial power Dragon Skin, which will absorb 50% of magicka from hostile projectiles for 60 seconds once per day. Your choice of Standing Stone will be the Atronach, increasing spell absorption by 50%, adding an additional 50 points to your mana pool, and reducing your mana regeneration rate by 50%. This limitation will be balanced out by your perks. Your stat spread will be 40% health, 40% stamina, and 20% magicka. Primary skills will be Archery, Sneak, and Restoration, with Light Armor, One-Handed, and Smithing as secondary skills. Your primary weapon at range will be Oriel's bow used with Sun-Hallowed arrows, and in melee you will use the unique dagger Keening. Your protective gear will be a Silver Knight helmet, gauntlets, boots, wings, and armor plus. You will also equip an Amulet of Articulation to boost your persuasive abilities, and any enchanted ring of your choice. Should you want to delve into enchanting yourself, then I would go with a gold diamond ring. Recommended enchantments for the build are Fortify Archery, Fortify Magicka Resistance, Fortify Sneak, Fortify Restoration, and Fortify Stamina Regen. Your favorited spells, shouts, and powers will be Grand Healing, Corona, Blue Giant, Battle Fury, Become Ethereal, Bend Will, and Call of Valor. For the Black Books, you will take Secret of Protection, Mora's Boon, Seeker of Shadows, and Companion's Insight. In Archery, you will take 5 points in Overdraw, causing your bows to deal 100% more damage. Eagle Eye, allowing you to zoom in while aiming your bow. 2 points in Steady Hand, allowing you to slow time by 50% while zooming at the cost of stamina. Power Shot, causing your arrows to stagger all but the largest opponents 50% of the time. Quick Shot, allowing you to draw your bow 30% faster. Bullseye, allowing attacks with bows to have a 15% chance to paralyze your targets. 1 point of Critical Shot, giving you a 10% chance of critical hit that deals extra damage. Hunter's Discipline, which will allow you to recover more arrows from bodies. And finally, Ranger, which will allow you to move faster with your bow drawn. In Sneak, you will take 5 points in Stealth, making you 40% harder to detect while sneaking. Backstab, which will make sneak attacks with one-handed weapons deal 6 times damage. Deadly Aim, which will allow sneak attacks with bows to deal 3 times damage. Assassin's Blade, allowing sneak attacks with daggers specifically to deal 15 times damage. Muffled Movement, which will reduce the noise made by your armor by half. Lightfoot, which will cause you to no longer trigger pressure plates. Silent Roll, which will give you a quick forward roll movement when pressing sprint while sneaking, and Silence, which will cause walking and running to no longer affect detection. In Light Armor, you will take 5 points in Agile Defender, increasing your armor rating for light armors by 100%. Custom Fit, giving you a 25% armor bonus when wearing all light armor. Unhindered, which will cause light armor to weigh nothing and will not slow down movement. Windwalker, which causes stamina to regenerate 50% faster when wearing all light armor. Deft Movement, giving you 10% chance of avoiding all damage from melee attacks while wearing all light armor. And Matching Set, giving you another 25% armor bonus when wearing a matching set. In Restoration, you will take Novice, Apprentice, Adept, and Expert Restoration, reducing the cost of associated spells by 50%. Regeneration, causing healing spells to cure 50% more HP. Respite, allowing your healing spells to also restore stamina. Necromage, giving all spells more damage against undead. 2 points of recovery, increasing your magic regeneration rate by 50%. And Avoid Death, healing you once a day for 250 HP when your health falls below 0. In One-Handed, you will take 5 points in Armsman, increasing damage dealt by one-handed weapons by 100%. And finally in Smithing, you will take Steel and Elven Smithing, allowing you to craft and further upgrade all associated armors and weapons. And Arcane Blacksmith, allowing you to place 2 enchantments on any single piece of gear. You are going to need 2 mods for the Seraphim. First, the Silver Knight armor for your protective gear, obviously, and the Heliomancy spell pack, which will add new restoration spells to the game, which you will make use of, along with making slight changes to weapons and spells that deal sun damage, including Oriel's bow and the sun-hallowed arrows. This mod will allow sun damage to still be effective against enemies that aren't undead, and deal even more damage to enemies who are, as well as adding a damage over time effect. And that will wrap up part 1 of the duality. Be sure to check back in a couple weeks for the conclusion to the backstory in the next build video, the Nephilim. Special thanks to Shadow Penguin for his work on this collaboration. Be sure to check his channel out, give us a like, make sure you're subscribed, and hey, maybe if you like the video, pass it around. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, I'm Shadowlord Zero from MasterQuest Gaming. Happy questing, everybody.